I want to tell you my story of when I was moving out here to Texas from California, how I was homeless and scrambling for my life and suicidal and alone and depressed, hopeless and out of options to literally within 8 months starting a career I'd never really done before and making over a $250,000 a year. This is a story of how I was using chaos, living in chaos, and using that to transform my life, my lifestyle, my habits, transform my environment, transform everything, transform the place that I was heading. Right, I was heading to a place that I was not familiar with. I was heading towards becoming a loser. I was heading towards not knowing what I was doing with my life. I was heading towards a dark path, and I knew that, and I didn't want that to happen. And so I used chaos to create this massive transformation in a time of crisis for me. Okay, let's start back at COVID. This all starts back at COVID. So, long story short, COVID, looking back, was a lot more impactful than I was giving it credit. I was, oh, it's not that bad. It's just whatever, like we're closing down, whatever. But like looking back, so this is what happened. COVID hit, and I was trying to become a loan officer. I was working for a bank in Irvine, California, and they were a loan mortgage company, and I wanted to become a loan officer because, well, it didn't matter why. I just knew they were making a lot of money, and I was just something I was willing to try and do. And I was working my tail off for them, and COVID hit. They ended up letting people go. They let me go, and that made me a little depressed and down and out. And because I was working so much there, it had probably been like 6 months since I had really like posted consistently on this YouTube channel. Which, by the way, I'm like back after like 6 years of being gone from this YouTube channel. But for the first like year and a half, I went hard to build this thing, and so I started slowing down around that time. And then COVID hit, and because of all of that, I was just a little down and out. I went to go live with my aunt because I had no one else to live with in Orange County. My parents had moved out, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to move away from Orange County where I knew people, had family and friends and opportunities and stuff. And so I decided to live with my aunt, working at this loan company, and they ended up letting me go. And I broke up with my girlfriend, who was an absolutely lovely girl. She was amazing, and I'm an idiot for breaking up with her. But essentially, I did that because I just felt so scared, and I was just self-destructing, I guess. And California, the COVID was not fun. The gyms were not open. Nothing was. I had to go work out outside at a playground on the monkey bars, do my pull-ups and stuff because there was no gyms open. So that stopped me. That like got me off of my workout grind for a long time. And that stopped that momentum. And also moving out to Riverside from Orange County. Well, I haven't gotten there yet. Yeah, so that was living with my aunt, and then I was like, okay, I broke up with my girlfriend and stuff. I lost a job. I wasn't doing YouTube. I wasn't quite working out as much, and I was like, and then COVID happened, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm not gonna live with my aunt anymore. Like I feel like I'm burdening her. I'm like I'm gonna go make myself my dad's problem, right? So I moved out with him out to Riverside, and COVID's still going on. I'm just living with him, rent free. That was the goal, was to go rent free. Why? Because I wanted to keep my expenses low so I could start a business. But that was the theory, that was the thought process. But doing that, like interfacing with someone I had a lot of unresolved trauma with and problems with, was not good for my mental health, which means I couldn't get things done for my business. And not just that, but all the other things that I was dealing with, like breaking up, moving out, like feeling like a loser, right? Like this is going to be a key theme in the story, is like feeling like a loser, like just going through dark times. And so I ended up getting into consulting. I learned about this guy named Sam Ovens, who's like a consultant, and just like learning all about how to really be like an entrepreneur, a digital entrepreneur, and how to be a consultant, and how to help people with that. And so I started getting into that, and I saw really slow success, nothing super sustainable, but I saw a little bit of results. And I was able to take, because I was studying hard. I was at my dad's place. I was just like, I got nothing else going on in my life, bro. Like I'm going to study this thing hard, learn how to create a consulting business. I made a few $1,000s from that. And then my buddy at the time was going to college and whatnot, but he was able to turn like a little bit of money into a few $1,000 with Doge. And because like this, it was 2020, 2021. End of 2020 is when I got into it, and I was like, okay, what's this crypto thing all about, right? Like I knew what crypto was, but I never really dabbled with it. So I put a little bit of money that I just made from that consulting thing into crypto on Doge. I made like $1,000. Things were pumping hard. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm a genius. Like I could do this. And so I ended up like within like 2 months getting into crypto for the first time ever. I started going on a Reddit, looking up like meme coins and stuff because I heard that's where you could get like make a lot of money. And the first meme coin I invested in was this meme coin called Safe Moon. And so I ended up turning like $3,000 into over $330,000 within like 6 weeks, and that was just insane. That blew my mind. It was life changing, but I didn't cash it out. I didn't cash it out, and so it started tanking. The whole market and that meme coin started tanking hard, and so I was able to cash out like as it was falling about 80-ish thousand dollars, and so I was like, I mean, that was a big hit. That was a big loss, right? I was like losing all that money, but at the same time that I was doing this crypto thing, I had also like just before getting into this crypto thing, I had started an Airbnb business with my dad's friend who had a trailer, but it had a lot of water damage. So we made a deal, right? Like I want to get into Airbnb. You have a unit, so I don't have to like pay for an RV or pay for like a yurt or pay for a house or something. I can get into Airbnb without having to put up a lot of money. And so I told him like we made a deal that if I helped him fix it, which I did over the following like month, 2 months, if I helped him fix that, then we could use that for Airbnb. Well, we did, and I worked on that for free pretty much. Went to Airbnb, which was out in Joshua Tree. I wanted to start out in Joshua Tree, and I ended up finding some other person who had like 10 acres for their Airbnb in a pretty solid spot. And I was just like, hey, like I'm new to Airbnb. I have an RV. Like, is it possible that I pay you like a little bit of rent for this month, just so I can like put my RV out there and see how this whole Airbnb thing works, see if I can get some listings. And so they were cool with that. I was able to do that, and we did get a few listings, surprisingly, in just the first couple of weeks. But it was a major nightmare because hey Gracie, stop it, baby. It was a major nightmare because this guy that I was working with just wasn't very responsive. He wasn't doing anything about the fires that were happening. He was just expecting me to do everything and like take half the revenue. It's like, okay, that's not how it's going to work. But the first few people that were like, booking this RV were like, it was a nightmare, bro. Like they couldn't find the key to get in. I was spending hours with them, like in the middle of the night, trying to get them to find this key for like, you know, $100 for the night. That's how much they booked it for like 2 nights or whatever. And like that was just a nightmare. And then the Joshua Tree was 3.5 hours away from where I lived, so like I wasn't about to just get up in the middle of the night and drive out there and like help them and stuff. But I was able to figure all that stuff out, and I was just like, dang, dude, like after working all this time on that RV, like it's not going to go anywhere. Like this isn't going to like I'm not going to be able to work with this guy. I'm not going to be able to do this Airbnb thing. I got pissed off, and then that's about when I started making that money in crypto. And so I was like, okay, fine. Like I'm just gonna go do my own thing, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy my own RV, like thing, whatever. But I was kind of looking into like a van life type thing at the time. That was pretty popping. So I was like, okay. So I went to go buy a van. I bought a Mercedes Sprinter van right off the lot, right, brand new. So dumb, so dumb. I started cutting into that thing. I spent like $20,000 on like brand new Milwaukee tools, like a bunch of wood, which at the time wood during COVID and like building supplies was absolutely through the roof, right? Like it was so expensive, and but I built that thing out, tried to build this shell of a van into like a nice livable van life type thing, and I spent 3 months in Riverside in the summer, 120 degrees every day building this thing, and I had no experience. I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought I could do it, right? I don't know. Maybe I had this like false confidence from making that money in crypto, but I was like, how hard could it be? So I did that, and the closer I got to finishing it, the more I realized, like, holy crap, like this thing's like trash. Like I did not do a very good job at this, and my dad was helping me a little bit on the electrical because he had some experience there, but I was doing everything else. I was doing the design, I was doing the painting, the cutting, the cutting the wood, measuring everything out, like doing everything, and learning on the fly of like how to do it. And so, long story short, I'm getting more and more frustrated, especially as I'm learning. Like I just sunk a ton of money into this, and I don't know what I'm doing. What am I gonna do with this thing now? And so I ended up getting, in a fight with my dad. We had a falling out, and so he kicked me out of the house, and yeah, because his wife didn't want me there anymore, and so he kicked me out of the house, and so I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I had this Sprinter van that wasn't livable, but I had my dog with me, and so literally within 3 weeks' notice, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just go out to Texas, right? And I'm just gonna go. I need somewhere to stay. I can't stay in this van. I have nowhere else to stay, and I'm not gonna get a job working 40, 50, 60 hours a week just to pay for like a $2,500, $3,000 a month rent here in California. Like it's so expensive in California. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go out where my brother is in Dallas, Texas. So I pick up, and within 3 weeks' notice, like in this half-built van, I'm going out to Texas. It's like a little road trip for me, for us. I'm in shock. Like I don't know what to make of all this. Like I just lost all this money. I'm in this van. Like what is happening, bro? Like all these things were supposed to work out with Airbnb, with Joshua Tree, with like this van, with like something else. Like things were just changing so much, especially during COVID. Anyway, I ended up getting out to Texas, and I stayed in El Paso one night. Here's a little funny story. I stayed in El Paso one night, and I was at a state park, and it was like a year into COVID, and I thought everything was fine and dandy, except 3 a.m. these cops roll up on me, like flashing their light in my RV, like knock on the door, or in the van, like knock on the door and stuff. I'm like, hey, like what's going on? Like I was drinking the night before that, just like trying to drown my sorrows. Like what am I doing with my life, bro? And it's 3 a.m. I don't have my shirt on. Like the van's like looking like garbage. On the inside, it's just not looking complete, whatever. And I have tools laying around everywhere. And the cops like, yo, state park's closed, right? Like you can't camp here, you can't be here during COVID. I'm like, damn, bro, like add insult to injury, right? Like, bro, it's a state park. Like, let me just like post up for the night, bro. I'm basically homeless. I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, I was like, all right, yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I didn't realize that. So, we made a deal. We were cool. And he was chill about it. He just said, get out of here in the morning. And so I did, got out of there, went to sleep for a little bit, got out of there. Ended up just driving straight over to Austin, Texas. I wanted to stop by Austin. I heard it was a fun place, and lo and behold, when I pulled up to Austin, it just felt like the clouds had like parted ways. Like the sunbeams were shining through to earth, and I could see there was just a bunch of young people. I mean, there wasn't a single person over 30. There was 100 people in my eyesight. I was at this beautiful park with this beautiful little river running down the city, and everyone's out running like on a jog, running, biking, walking their dog, like on a picnic. And I'm like, what is this place, bro? Like, because I've been to Dallas before, and it was kind of, it's kind of like hustle and bustle, kind of like a little bit more low key. But like Austin's very like friendly, very open, and I didn't know that. So I was like, okay, this is my spot. Like, I want to stay here for a little bit. I did, but I had my dog, and if you know anything about summer or Texas in the summertime in August, it was 100, it was 100 and whatever degrees, and it was 100% humidity, and it was awful to sleep in. Now, I didn't have an AC, like my electrical wasn't working very well. I couldn't cook. I had a fan in the roof that ran on battery, but like that wasn't doing anything except pushing hot air at me and my dog. So I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this to my dog. So I was like, I need somewhere with AC. So I ended up getting a motel, right? Stayed at a Motel 6 that night that I landed in Austin, and put my dog in there, threw the AC on, tried to figure out what I was doing with my life, like what was going on. Bounced around to another motel, found a good deal, another Motel 6, and then I bounced around to another, Super 8 motel. And so, like, 3, 4 weeks into being there, I'm like still struggling, trying to cope with all this stuff, not knowing what my next move is. But I realized, like, damn, bro, like living in motels is super expensive. Now, mind you, right, I'm bleeding cash this whole time. Like, I'm paying for food, I'm paying for gas, I'm paying for motels. So then, I spent like almost 3 grand in 1 month just at motels. And I was like, I can get an apartment for like 15 to 1700 bucks out here, a nice apartment, right? And so I ended up doing that, and I didn't have an income, right? So like, how did I get an apartment, right? Well, apparently you can have like a year's worth of cash in your account. That if you can afford a year's worth of rent payment, then you don't need an income. So I had that. Luckily, I had like 15K, 15 to 20K or something in my account, but that was after losing all that money, all that after making all those $100,000, and then only cashing out so much, and then reinvesting that immediately on a high risk venture that didn't work out very well. And so I was able to get an apartment, but for the first 3 months living in that apartment, I didn't have furniture. I had a mattress that I took from the van. I dragged it upstairs. There was no bed frame, nothing. I just put the mattress on the floor, and that's all I had. I didn't have a couch. I didn't have a TV. I had nothing. And so I'm sitting there for 3 months, like just trying to figure out what to do with my life. Like the main thing was trying to sell that van. I just wanted to get that van out of my life because I had like $35,000 worth of debt under it. I'd put like $20,000 of my own cash in there, and there was no way I was going to finish building that myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I just gave up. I cut my losses mentally at least, and that was really hard to do. And it took almost 3 months to sell, and I was getting more and more depressed and like anxious because people were only giving me like $15,000, $20,000 offers on this van that was, I mean, I had $70,000 worth of like things in it, and it was brand new. I just bought it like 4 months earlier, and so luckily, by the grace of God, I was able to get a good offer for like 55K. I still took like a $20,000 loss on that, even at that price, but I was able to get myself out from under that debt. I was able to get rid of that van and kind of move that on for my life, and kind of emotionally and mentally focus on the next step. So I still didn't know what to do. I hadn't left my house, in like 3 months. I don't know anyone. I don't have any friends out here. I didn't talk to anyone. So I'm like depressed alone in this apartment. And so I end up figuring out like, dude, I need an income. Like I need an income because I have to pay next month's rent, and I'm like bleeding cash. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna rent a car from like Enterprise or whatever. I found a Prius down in Houston, which is 3 hours south. I found a Prius down there, 2010 Prius for like 10K. I put my like $3,000 down on it, drove down there in my little rental car that day, bought it, drove back to Austin, just wheeling and dealing, bro. Like brought it back to Austin and started doing Uber Eats and DoorDash, and I was working like I was just trying to clock like 100 to 150 bucks a day, every day, keep myself busy, but I knew that wasn't sustainable. And so I knew I just had to get a job, and that was like something I really didn't want to do, but like what else was there to do? And so I don't know. I didn't know where my mind was. I just needed to survive, bro. I just needed to take care of my needs. And I was thinking like, okay, maybe I could be like a personal trainer. I'd never been a personal trainer before. Like I had one client back in California who was like pretty high profile, but that was pretty much it, right? Like that wasn't like a career or anything, but I figured I'd be good at it. And I thought I'd be making like 15, 20 bucks an hour. But I saw this listing on Indeed when I was going through, and it was like 65 bucks per session of like independent contractors. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like what's an independent contractor? Like how do I do that as a personal trainer? And so it turns out it's just working with this company as like a personal trainer where they like do the lead generation. They send you a lead, set you up on your calendar with the lead, and then you have to go to their house, because I was doing in-home personal training, and like do the consultation, close them on a package, and then train them as like a client. But I was giving up 40% of the revenue to this other company, and so I didn't get anything from this company after like 2 months, 2.5 months of doing like Uber Eats. I just kind of like forgot about them. But then I started getting like some leads on my thing, and I really was like hungry to like get something going. So I closed 100% of them. A couple months later, there was like two, three leads I was able to close into clients, and now I'm making like a solid little income from personal training. But then like a few months later, like as they're like, kind of like trickling a lead every like once a week or once every 2 weeks or something, then all at once they booked up my calendar with like 20 leads over the course of 2 weeks, and I closed like all of them. So now I'm making like $6,000, $7,000 a month, while also giving this other company 40% of the revenue. I'm like, dang, bro, like I just close these guys, like I'm doing all the training, like so you're telling me I just have to figure out how to do what these guys do, and I no longer have to give up 40%. So I did, and my little entrepreneurial brain figured that out, optimized that, and lo and behold, I'm within from not having a car, from like being depressed, not knowing where to live, like not knowing what to do with this van, like not having a car, to having a Prius, to starting personal training for the first time. I had no idea I was even doing that. Within 6 months, 8 months, now I'm generating $8,000 to $10,000 a month on my own thing, my own business. I'm making good friends with these people, with my clients. Now it was kind of sad for the first like year and a half, because like I didn't have any friends out here. I still really don't, but my clients were like my best friends. They're like the closest people to me at the time. And so but I ended up doing that and optimizing, like how can I drive less to people? How can I have them like drive to me or something? Or how can I increase my prices? Just like small stuff to optimize. And, eventually I found myself doing 10, 12, $15,000 a month for like a good solid year and a half. But I was working, 100, 120 hours a week. I mean, if I had 8 to 10 clients a day, which is 45 minutes per session. But I'm driving to them and they're all around the city, which thank God, Austin's a very, 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 very small, like small major city. It's like you could drive around the whole entire city in 30 minutes. Where I was coming from LA, it took you 3 hours just to go 5 miles, right? I'm fortunate that that was the case, but I'm still driving. I mean, let's say I'm with clients 6 to 8 hours a day. I was driving, twice that. I was driving as much as that. So I was working 14, 15, 16 hours a day sometimes, 6 days a week with a couple on Sunday, couple one-offs on Sunday. But that was really hard to cope with but I was just like, I think just trying to not sit and think about all that shit that I was just going through. So I was becoming a workaholic, just working through all of it. And eventually I kind of crashed out and like slowed down a lot on the personal training stuff. Was making a killing, but I think I was just like very grateful to have like finally some ground beneath me, some stability, which mentally and emotionally wasn't so stable, but like physically things were okay now. And then, like over the last like year and a half, I've just been kind of slowing down and just kind of like really trying to heal from all of that stuff. And yeah, that's the story of how I went from homeless to making $250,000 within like 8 months of each other. And yeah, I never want to go through that situation again. That was really hard, but I can just tell you right now that that's the whole reason I'm putting this story out there, is to help, because I've been through that scenario once, more than once, and I know that there's other people out there who are going through the same thing, other guys going through the same thing, like just trying to start a life for themselves, or you get caught up in some like COVID or something affected all of us, right? Like maybe that threw you off, or maybe you just went through a breakup or a divorce or a job loss, or but like this is just goes to prove like you can turn that chaos, you can turn that crisis into like that is literally the catapult into the life you want to live, a 10 times 100 times better life than you're living now. It's like you just have to catch yourself, realize that if you keep going where you're going, it's going to keep getting darker and darker, because you ain't getting any younger, you ain't getting any more energy, you ain't getting any more happy or more optimistic. And so you kind of have to rip it off like a band-aid like that. And I knew what I had to do. I knew that there was an outcome I had to achieve, and I went for it. And I had no idea what the details of that looked like. I just knew that I didn't want to get a job. I wanted to start a business. I couldn't live in California, so I didn't know what to do. I had to move out to Texas, but I didn't know where. I didn't know how. I didn't know. I just want to make an offer. If you find yourself in this situation, I have a community. I started a brotherhood of guys who are also in the same or a similar situation, just trying to fight for their life, just trying to get something good going. So like if that resonates with you, join us. Like join us. I'm in there all the time working on my thing. Like I'm 28 years old. I'm still on my journey. I still have a long ways to go, but I've done what I've done with my life. And so hopefully I can give you that as some value. But join the brotherhood, man. Like I got the link down there in the description. I'd love to see some more people in there being a little bit more active. But we got an awesome group of guys, and yeah, man, I really hope that this story was able to resonate with you somehow. And there's a lot of lessons in there. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on the comments. But outside that, thank you for watching this video. Please like this video, like give the YouTube algorithm what the YouTube algorithm wants. Leave a comment, subscribe, join the brotherhood. Just like stay up to date, man. Like I'm gonna keep giving you updates on me, my life, like my accomplishments or my setbacks, my failures, my stories. But I want to hear yours too. I want to be a part of your story. I want to help you succeed, because that's because life's tough, man. Life's tough, and we're all out here alone, and it doesn't make sense why we're all fighting alone. Like, there's so many forces that are so much bigger than all of us, compressing all of us down. That like, why are we fighting alone? We're fighting each other alone. And that's exactly what that's exactly how we stay down. So, anyway, enough rambling from me. I hope you guys like that story. I'll see you in the next video.